Congratulations on completing your first writing assignment, your first story. Look, was it hard? Was it awkward? Was it uncomfortable? Did you struggle? The answer is probably yes to all of those, and we all do, especially in the beginning, especially if that was your first one. It is a tough thing to do to go to some scene, some event, figure out what's going on, go talk to people, right? It's awkward just to go and introduce yourself and say, "Can I, get a quote from you for a story?" I know that's tough. Then it's tough coming back and putting all those pieces together. It's like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, and putting it together to make it make sense. And to have to edit it, and then I have to go edit it for a new style, AP style, right? Make sure it's done in a certain way. There are a lot of moving pieces to these stories. I know that. So it's hard in the beginning. I know it's extremely uncomfortable. It's a different style of writing, but it gets easier each time you do it. It makes a little bit more sense. It feels a little less awkward to go and talk to somebody and introduce yourself out of the blue, right? So the first one I find is usually the hardest one for the students. Is where you feel the most lost. And then it's going to start to make more and more sense, especially as we also continue to practice in the class and get some more lessons that help you become a better writer. But I have to do that early. We get it out of the way, break the ice, because at some point you just have to write. You just have to do it, like Nike says, right? You just got to sit down and you just got to do it. That's the only way that you can then really start to apply the lessons that we've been learning on like a theoretical level, and actually understand how they're applied and how they're used when you have to go out and do it. So with all that said, that's my long form way of saying that I understand these are not going to be perfect. Like I've said in other videos, this one is not going to be perfect. You are probably going to make a lot of mistakes. Yes, I still have to grade it. Yes, I have to distinguish between an A, B, C, but I'm going to go light. I'm going to go lenient on this first one, right? I know that you're making mistakes. I know that you're not experts. I'm looking for were the lessons applied that we've been learning as far as, a lead, a nut graph, structure. Did you get quality quotes? AP style, was there some effort made? Did I see you got the basic ones, the ones that we've covered in class? Those are the types of things that I'm really going to be focusing on. If you make other mistakes, or even within that context that I just gave you, I see why you made the error that you did. It does not turn something from an A to a D. All right, I understand all that, and of course I'm going to go lenient on this first one, and this is more for you to learn. Right, I'm going to give you feedback, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm going to give you feedback, and it's more for you to get the feedback to understand why you made the mistakes that you did, because we have writing more of these stories coming. So then you don't make those same errors on the next one and the following one, right? So that's really what this one was about. It's still, let's see where your mistakes are so we can start to address them now. And then let's just see, if you're on track and which lessons have really stuck and which lessons you maybe need to go back and review because you struggled with that with your assignment. I'm also in a minute going to go over something I saw that the class struggled with before. So this is going to be backtracking a couple weeks. Speaking of feedback and getting better, it's just backtracking a couple weeks. I haven't graded your AP assignments yet. Some of you just turned it in, Sunday. So I don't know where we stand as a class as far as AP style yet. So next video, I can maybe give some general feedback on that. So this goes back 2 weeks ago because I have finished all those assignments, and it was something on the quiz. This was about leads. If you remember, mostly it was about leads. And I noticed that we struggled on what was the two hardest questions of the quiz. But here's a lead that I gave you. I asked you to tell me what's wrong with this lead, and then I asked you to fix the lead. So let's go over this because I want to make sure that we all understand structurally what was wrong with this lead. So here's the way that I had the lead for the quiz. Mary Smith, a nurse who worked in Hartford Hospital for 20 years, received a major award at 2:30 p.m. at the state capitol in Hartford from the Connecticut Hospital Association for never missing a day of work. I mean, I wrote that lead. I was stumbling over it. So I know there's way too much in there. So let's break down a few of the more egregious issues. Mary Smith. So I give her name in the lead. Anytime you see a name in the lead or you use a name in the lead, it should set off a flag for you because there's a certain criteria it has to meet. Is that person a person of prominence? What I mean by prominence is well known, pretty well known. I know now this is where we can have different definitions of pretty well known, but a celebrity. Maybe if it's for a state, the governor, I'm trying to think of someone else in the state who would be like a coach of a basketball team, like the UConn basketball team, right? So maybe not everybody in the world and the country knows this person, but for the viewers, the audience that's reading it, the readers that are reading, what your story, the person is well known to the majority of the public. So that's what we consider a person of prominence. So Mary Smith, who's a nurse, does not fit that criteria. In that case, we're going to use another descriptor of her. Before I explain that, the reason why we don't do that is because if you give too many details in the lead, it's like going through the weeds. Like the person can't absorb it all. You, a reader, can only absorb so many details and have something make sense and have something stick. So if you're seeing names and numbers and dates, it becomes too much to process and absorb, and then you kind of just lose track of the whole sentence, lose track of what the whole point of it was. That's why you're not giving a name, unless it's a person of prominence, because then it becomes even more, that becomes really what the story is about. Quick example, drunk driver hits a pole, and crashes and causes an accident. Yes, that's a story, it'll get reported on, but if it's, Joe Schmo, it's just a drunk driver. And I'm not saying that in a facetious way, but, it's a drunk driver, right? So that happens, and that's the story that it's going to cover. But if that drunk driver is LeBron James, nothing against the king, right? I like the king, but let's say it's LeBron James, right? That's really now the story. Yes, the drunk driving and the accident, is going to be a part of it, but really it's a story that this celebrity that we all know got busted for drunk driving, right? So that's why a person of prominence becomes the story, really. If it's not, then it's just the story is the other aspect of it, if that made sense. So we're not going to use Mary Smith. We know that that's a problem. Who has worked in a Hartford hospital for 20 years. So, okay. I mean, that is the big piece of the story that's been a long time. Maybe you don't want to include the 20 years in the lead, but we'll get to that. Received a major award. That's definitely part of this lead. That's what it's about, right? A nurse received a major award at 2:30 p.m. at the state capitol in Hartford. So we don't need times. That's not crucial to the lead. That's not crucial to the story, what time she received the award. That's an important part, receiving an award. What time? No. At the state capitol in Hartford from the Connecticut Hospital Association. Location, so maybe, the state capitol. Yeah, okay, we're talking about location. Who she received it from? It depends. I mean, that's not as significant as what the actual important part of the story was, is that this nurse received an award. And here is the crucial part. So she received an award. So what, right? A lot of people receive awards. Well, this really ultimately breaks down what the story is for never missing a day of work. Now, that's impressive. Think about that, right? I'm sure you've missed a day of work in the last month. I have students who've had the flu. 80% of my classes missed a class already, probably. So for never missing a day of work is a huge piece of it. So when you see something like this, if you're editing or you write this as a draft, this lead, you got to start doing what I just did right now and analyze it a little bit, diagnose it, and say, all right, well, what's important to this? Definitely this. This is the biggest part of the whole lead. Never missing a day of work. That's very impressive. All right, we know that we have to say who that is, but do we need her name? No, because she's not a person of prominence. So it's a nurse. Okay, got it. We'll have to describe her in some way. Then if I'm not going to say her name, how do I describe her? Well, she's a Hartford hospital nurse. Okay, maybe I could use that. A Hartford hospital nurse. She never missed a day of work. Well, if she's been there for 2 weeks, that's not that important, right? That's not that big of a deal. She's been there in a year, a little bit more. Could be a fluke, though. She's been there 20 years. Well, okay, so we definitely need to say that she's been there for 20 years because, that's what makes this so impressive, that she's never missed a day of work. And then these other details you start to try to figure out, what do I need, what do I don't. So here's the way that I wrote it. I'm not saying that this is the only way you can do it. I'm not saying that this lead is perfect. In fact, maybe if I spent even more time, like you should, on leads and drafts, You come up with a better one, right? You can always improve. So there's other ways to do this, but here's a lead at its most basic level that gets the crux of what the story is about. A Hartford hospital nurse, so that's how I identified her. She's a Hartford hospital nurse of over 20 years. So now I've described how long she's been there, right? Received a major award at the state capitol for never missing a day of work. That sums up this lead. Or that sums up this story right here, right? I know who it is. I know what happened. I even know where. I know, why she received the award. I guess looking at this right now, so you can always improve leads, I could say the day. So remember, you write things in past tense. So I wouldn't say today. The time you don't need, like we talked about, but maybe I would say a Hartford hospital nurse received a major award at the state capitol for received an award at the state capitol on Wednesday. Right, you always write past tense. So if it was on Wednesday for never missing a day of work. I could do it that way, and even have the when, but you guys get the idea. This is the crucial piece of the story. That's why it's the lead. Then in the nut graph, I can say hospital, or is what I call it, the Connecticut Hospital Association. I could say they gave it to her. I guess if I thought the time was important, I could put the time there. Those are all, like we talked about in the nut graph, where the other details go that then really give the whole story in a nutshell, pretty much. And then I start to put those in the nut graph, the other details. But this is all I really need to understand what this story is about. So I really want to take the time here and break that down because I noticed a theme throughout the class. There are a lot of issues with writing the lead. Leads are not 2 sentences. Leads do not bog you down with too many details. Leads, again, you don't put the person's name in. That's a no-no right away. That's an obvious one that you got to avoid. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be working on as we work on these stories. Leads are incredibly hard to do. They take a lot of time and practice, but there are certain elements that are just kind of automatic red flags that you should say, nope, that definitely cannot be in there. And there's not really much of a debate on that. You can debate maybe adding other details here if I wanted to enhance this lead. If there's different ways to do it, but there's really no debate saying, well, we should put her name in there. We need the time in there if it's not crucial to the story, right? We need the time in there. Like that stuff is like, no, we don't need that. Okay. So now we did a quick review of that week. Let's go over what we're doing this week. 3 chapters this week, 14, 15, and 16. They're not that long, but it is a lot of reading, so make sure you pace yourself for the week and give yourself time to get through all 3 of them. They're media law, it's ethics, and cultural sensitivity, multiculturalism. So again, just helping you become a complete writer, understanding what you say could have consequences legally, not just ethically, but legally for you. So knowing where that line is, that's really what this week is about for the media law and the ethics. What is unethical, meaning you shouldn't do it, but you're not going to go to jail for it, right? Maybe you get fired from it. Maybe you have other backlash, but you're not going to get fired from it, but you should avoid it. So what's unethical, and then what's illegal. There are some things that you do that you could actually get sued for. I shouldn't say necessarily go to jail for, though. There have been cases, but we won't get into this for this class. But that you could get sued for, right? And those are laws. Those are lessons you really got to know, because not for this class. I'm not trying to scare you for this class, but as soon as you publish something for a real news outlet, whether it's a small paper or major paper or your own blog, if you're just blogging yourself, you could get sued for these. So anything that goes public, whether you are a professional journalist, a citizen journalist, a blogger, whatever you are, the laws apply to everybody, which is really interesting. So make sure that you understand them, because it's going to even help you, even if you don't become a journalist and you just blog, or even this is now gone over and translates into social media too. A lot of these, again, you don't have to be a journalist. These laws apply to everybody. So I think it's a really helpful chapter just to understand, what is libel, what is slander, what is, copyright. That's a good thing to know. All right, so you got that. You got the exercise, which relates to a media law question. I've included this too. Review the feedback from your hard news story. Now, if you remember, I said however long I give you to do an assignment, just give me that much time to grade. So my plan is to get them all done this week. There's a good chance, though, it's going to be 2 weeks to get to them all. So if you don't get your feedback this week, know it's coming within 2 weeks. But still, the minute that you get feedback from your hard news story, take a look at the comments that I give you. I go through the document in Blackboard, do all those edits, and take a look at what I'm telling you. If you have questions, message me and let me know. I'm still a little unclear what you meant by this. I'm giving a lot of feedback to a lot of students. Sometimes I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking about the feedback. I write that sentence or two out. But because I've had the full context, because I've thought it all through, or maybe I've thought that so many times now writing for other students, I didn't articulate it in a great way, or I should have been a little bit more complete in my explanation to you, right? I was almost just doing shorthand writing to you. So most of the time I think students get what I'm saying, but if you really don't get it, message me. The reason why is because all this feedback I'm expecting to be applied on the next story and then moving on in this class. So I told you I go lenient on this first one, of course, but where I do start getting strict is, the next one, if I gave you feedback on the first assignment, for example, hey, Mary, leads are one sentence. You have 2-3 sentences for your lead. And then on Mary's next assignment, she has 2-3 sentences for the lead. That's where I start to ding you, right? Because now, we learned it in class, I've given you the feedback, and to me it starts to become a point where it's like, well, now you're just not focusing. Now you're not just taking the attention, the diligence that you need to. Then that's where it becomes, I don't say an issue, but that's where it becomes like, okay, well, now you know better, right? You know what you're supposed to be doing. So that's why I want you to make sure you understand that feedback, because what I don't want the disconnect is I give you the feedback, you still don't understand it, but I'm going to just fake it. And then the next week you come back and you do the same thing, and you lose a lot more points, and it's, well, I just really didn't understand. You just didn't really get it. So I want to make sure that if I don't hear back from you, I think, okay, the student gets it, we're all on the same page, and now we won't be making those kinds of errors moving forward. So make sure you understand everything. A lot of it's on me. If I'm not clear, that's probably on me. So let me know, and I'll give you a deeper explanation. Or I've even called students before. I know that probably scares some of you, but if you wanted to do a call and we can go over your assignment, if you're really lost on what I'm talking about, we could call. So it doesn't always have to be written. If you think like, I am totally lost, I bombed that, I have no idea what I'm doing. Sometimes writing won't do it, so we'll figure out another way. Just keep that on the back of your mind as you go through your assignment. All right, I think that covers everything. And of course, you should be reading news stories every day. Now that especially that you've written one, you're gonna get way more out of it as you start to read these hard news stories and feature stories, where we're going next, right? If you start to read these, you'll be able to start to see how the reporter did it, the journalist did it. And again, I think this is just another great way to help you become better for your next story. So nothing graded with this, as you know, but don't take that lightly. I think that's going to make you even that much better in this class. All right, I think that's all I got for you this week. Nice light week. Any questions, let me know. Look for that feedback, and I'll see you next week.